Okay, if we're thinking calf mobilisation, the first thing we have to think is where does the Achilles tendon attach? Because if we're thinking of the calf, we're thinking of the soleus. We're thinking of the soleus, we're obviously thinking of the Achilles tendon, and then we're obviously thinking of the calcaneus, because that is where it attaches. But we've got to remember, it doesn't just attach down the back posterior, it actually comes very slightly medial. So it comes down and very slightly medial in. So it's just coming roughly onto the inside of the heel. So if it's coming to the inside of the heel, this really tells us that it's controlling a lot of frontal plane movement, because we all stretch our calf just in the sagittal plane here, foot back, maybe hands against the wall, then we'll bend the knee, but that's all in the sagittal plane. You want to be stretching it and activating it in all three planes, especially the frontal plane. Because of this medial attachment, this slightly medial attachment, it means every time the calcaneus hits the floor, the heel hits the floor, and the calcaneus rolls in and down, this is putting a pull, this is putting a stretch on this Achilles tendon, which is then sending a signal for the muscle to fire. So when we're stretching the calf, the last thing we want to be doing is just stretching it in this backwards and forwards motion. So what we want to do is actually use our other leg as a driver to move this. You can see if I reach forward with my toes, that's giving me a sagittal movement. If I use my right leg as a driver and use that to drive forwards with my knee bent, heel on the floor, this is giving me a sagittal stretch. If I reach over here, you can see this is now externally rotating the tibia, lifting the arch, and it's giving me a different stretch. If I reach over here with my foot as a driver, you can see this is pulling the knee in, and this is really giving me that frontal plane and transverse plane stretch. So this is what we want to do. The last thing we want to do is just be sat here in one sagittal plane movement. So we can bend our left leg if we're stretching the left calf, and use our right leg as a driver, really going forwards to pull this leg, this knee, the calcaneus and the calf in as many different directions as we can to get a stretch on it in as many different directions as we can. And then we think, well, if we're running and we're on a track or we're throwing a ball or anything, we ain't really going to have the opportunity to do this kind of leaning forwards. We actually want our bodies upright. So with our thoracic spine, we want that extended, we want our chin in, we want to be pushing through the top of our heads all the time. Not compressing the back, but pushing up through the top. So we can do that by putting our hands up in the air. This now, not only is this extending my spine, this is giving me extension of my back, and it's giving me less mobility, and it's increasing the mobility with stability. So without this, I've got more mobility, I can reach further. When I have my hands up, it's forcing me to get mobility with stability in all different directions. And then we think, well, that's okay there, but if I was to throw a ball or something, I'd need my hip open more to come back. So then we use our right leg as a driver again. We can lunge around. You can see this really sends this knee in now. I'm really getting loads of calcaneal eversion. Then I can come right back across. Straightening the back knee gives me external rotation of the back leg, lifts the arch, and now gives me calcaneal inversion instead of eversion. So we come down here and here. So now we're really warming the calf up in all three planes, and then we can just bend lower and lower as we go through this back stretch as well, and really come over here. You can see that really pulls the knee in. So when we're warming the calf up, we're not just thinking this boring sagittal plane movement, we're trying to get it in as many angles as possible, because this is how it's going to be asked to perform. If you're doing cross country or any type of running, as soon as this foot hits an unstable surface, if you've only stretched your calf in a sagittal plane, that is all you're going to get is a sagittal plane stretch. As soon as your foot hits an unstable surface, it's going to give it a different stretch. It's going to give it a transverse and a frontal plane stretch, which you wouldn't have warmed up in, and that's where your injuries come from. So you want all three planes. Then we want the hands above the head as well, with all these different movements to extend the spine. Then we think, well, when the foot's moving, the knee's moving, the hips are going in frontal plane motion, as well as sagittal motion, as well as transverse motion. With our hands, our centre of gravity is constantly changing with every footstep as we shift from side to side. So then we can use our hands, as well as driving with the foot, we can then start to lean. So what I'm doing now is I'm changing my centre of gravity, opening up the lats, opening up the QL, and I'm now giving my body a different feeling again, going to different sides with these same reaching, the same stretches, because I'm now teaching my body, and my calf especially, how to handle different movements when my body's in a different movement as well. So just say you throw a ball, you pull back, this shoulder's in a completely different movement to what it is maybe here when you're running. So it's a question of when you're warming up one body part, get every single body part interacting with it in as many different angles as possible. So then if you land into one of them angles, you're never ever going to have a problem of your body not being used to it and getting yourself an injury. Okay, cheers.